home in Australia. Hello everyone, my name is Luke. I'm French, I'm 26 years old, and I've been living in Australia, Brisbane since May 2019. Working holiday visa WHV. I met my girlfriend Mina, who is of Japanese origin, a month after arriving in Australia on a strawberry farm where we both worked. We worked there for several months until the health crisis hit the planet. So the farm job was over, we had to find something else. At that point we had two choices, go back home and separate, hard going, or stick together and try to get through this on our own. Spoiler, we chose the second option. We then decided to quit our seasonal job in the countryside, no choice at the time, to move to the city to try to find a new job. Bingo! Good news for me. An employer has agreed to hire me to work for a local Australian rules football team. We'll call this employer Kathy, anonymity required. Kathy explains that I can work for the football team, but that currently, due to the health crisis, a lockdown will be mandatory, even though Australia is relatively unaffected at the moment compared to Europe. In short, I'm hired, but I'll have to wait for the lockdown to pass and the football season to resume. So I explained to her that I'm interested, but that it's going to be difficult for Mina and me to remain unemployed during the lockdown because we have rent to pay, food, etc. You should know that Kathy has a heart as big as Australia. Sensitive to our situation, she explains that she has a solution for us. She owns a holiday home several kilometers from Brisbane that belonged to her father, who is now in a retirement home where we could stay for free during the lockdown. At first, I didn't really believe it. I thought there was something fishy going on, but given the situation, I accepted. It was the best solution for us. So we accepted this offer and moved into this house a few days later. Animal Crossing, Splatoon, MK, we really geeked out like pigs during this lockdown. Haha, everything's going great. We feel a bit lonely because this house is isolated in the countryside, but other than that, we're fine. We have a garden, etc., all for free, so there's nothing to complain about in the end. I should also point out that this house is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I only have one neighbor, John, who takes care of some horses, whom I've become friends with, and that's it. It's like the sticks. Other details that will be important. In this house, there is a main entrance door with a large blurred window, so we can see things through it. And there is another wooden door behind the house, which opens onto a veranda connected to the house. This house is a single story, so there are no floors and finally no curtains on the windows except in the bedroom. The context is set, the story begins now. 3 or 4 weeks after moving in, Kathy calls me to give me some good news. I can go to work. First day at work, everything goes smoothly, I love what I do, great atmosphere, etc. The only problem is, we're still at Kathy's father's house, which is several kilometers from Brisbane, and I don't have a car, so I have an hour and a bit of a train ride to get there, and the same to come back. But as I said before, I have no complaints. I should point out that Mina was still looking for work. She wasn't as lucky as me, so she was mostly at home while I was working. Second day at work, still great. 5 p.m. I'm about to finish my day when I get a call from Mina. She's whispering, her voice trembling. And you should know that we both communicate in English, and we're not necessarily bilingual, so sometimes we only half understand each other. At the first second, I feel something's wrong. Here I'm going to switch to her point of view to give you as much detail as possible. She was quietly playing Animal Crossing on the couch when suddenly, she saw a silhouette through the blurry window of the main entrance door. Too small and too large for it to be me or even John. And she quickly understood that. She stared at this silhouette, which was now motionless in front of the front door. It was just as she tried to get up to slowly move away from the door, that this individual started banging frantically on the door. Her heart races, she doesn't know what to do. She tries to be as discreet as possible so that this person thinks no one is there or won't open the door. She finally decides to hide in the bedroom closet because it's the only room where you can't see what's going on from outside. Huddled between the hangers and our clothes, praying he'd give up, she suddenly remembered there was a second door behind the house that was freely accessible, and she didn't know if it was locked or not. Courageous, she decided to rush through the house to reach that door. Then, as she ran, she saw this man very furtively passing by one of the kitchen windows. Conclusion: he was going around to check if there was a door at the back of the house. Panicked but already in her tracks, she decided to go all the way and risk everything. She must close that door before he tries to open it. It was finally when she pressed the latch that she heard the man trying to push the door open. Completely scared, she went back to hide in the closet, and that's when she called me. As I said earlier, I had a little trouble understanding what she was saying on the phone. Her voice was trembling, etc., but I immediately tried to calm her down so I could get clear information about what was happening. After a minute where I asked her to focus on her breathing and listen to me, she was able to calmly describe what had just happened. Standing next to Kathy, I asked her if anyone's supposed to come to the house or something like that, but no one's supposed to come, or even if this house is occupied. That's when I switched to, I need to get home as quickly as possible while making sure she's in as little danger as possible. I asked her to stay in that closet and call the police and call me right back, while I wait for her to get home. Finally, she decided to stay on the phone with me, which wasn't the best solution, I admit. She should have called the police, but I was in a state of total stress, and having her on the phone nonstop reassured me. I ordered an Uber, which must have thought I was really weird, by the way. I kept asking them to go faster, even if it meant paying more. Haha. After a few minutes, I was in my Uber, still with Mina on the phone. She explained that she couldn't hear anything anymore, no one knocking at the door or anyone around the house. I advise her not to move, but she finally convinces herself to peek out of the closet, only to confirm a few minutes later that the figure is no longer visible behind the door and that no one seems to be around the house. 5:45 p.m. I'm in front of my house. I rush to find Mina and give her a huge hug. Explaining that I'm here, she has nothing to fear anymore. 6 p.m. It's dark at this time of year in Australia. I check the locks and try to clear her mind by playing a game and watching some anime. Mistake! In my relief at rushing to find her without any problems, I forgot a very important detail. Check around the house. Damn it, Luke. Why didn't you check around the house? So it's bedtime. 1 a.m. The neighbor's horses wake me up. I hear hooves. Mina, still not really asleep, asks me what that noise is, and I tell her it's the neighbor's horses. Another mistake on my part. It really wasn't horse noises. 3 a.m. Boom, boom, boom! A guy is frantically banging on the door. From behind this time. But like really loud. Like he's half breaking the door down. I can tell you, I discovered what adrenaline was at that moment. I'm sure of it. It's the same guy, and he's had one intention from the start. To get into that house. Mina screams, I start shaking all over. I have this feeling of being paralyzed, but at the same time, I have so much energy to expend. It's very strange. I get out of bed, planning to barricade the back door and then call the cops. Just as I'm leaving the room, I hear a dull metallic thud. That's it! He's opened the damn back door, he's on the porch. So there's only one last door with a measly wooden wedge under the small gap at the bottom of the door that separates us. And he's still determined to get back in. For me, at that moment, it's a sure thing. He's going to get in. Warning, shitty reflex. Don't do that in this situation. It's a bad idea. I'm not the type to fight, and I'm not much good in a fight. But I have no choice. I grab the biggest kitchen knife I have. I position myself in an angle where I have the best chance of taking him by surprise when he comes home. And I am ready to use this knife to defend us. To defend Mina, who is frozen in bed. Honestly, I can already see myself explaining to the court why I stood up to a guy. And strangely, I have no doubt that I'll succeed. I'm so scared, but at the same time so confident. It's really, really strange. When suddenly, in the middle of her millions of thoughts, Mina yells, "Stop! Call the police!" I look at her, she throws me my phone, and I tell myself that instead of waiting around and doing nothing, maximizing my chances of staying safe while waiting for her behind the door is a good idea. So, still in the same position, ready to defend myself, I call the police. The phone call must have lasted 40 seconds. The officer on the phone immediately understood that it was serious. He asked me for the address, and that's it. They were on their way. At that moment, I felt a little more relieved, but still remained on the alert. That's when the man started mumbling incomprehensible stuff, which doesn't reassure me because from the noise he's making, I think he's either drunk or high on drugs, or he's mentally ill. He must have realized I called the cops, but he's still touching the handle and pushing the door open. 3:10 a.m. I've never been so happy to see flashing lights. The cops are here. 4 cops and 1 police dog. Just as I see them approaching the house, I hear noises behind the door. The man seems to get scared and gives up. I hear the dog barking, the police officers yelling, and a man moaning. It was over. The man takes out the weapon and gets into the car. One of the police officers stayed to talk to us and get our version of events, and to find out if we wanted to press charges or not. He told us there was a chance this man was a patient at a drug rehabilitation center who had run away. He also told us he wasn't sure at the time and that they would have to verify his identity, but in the end, we never heard from this guy or the police. After that night, during which I admit we had trouble sleeping, I contacted Kathy to explain what had happened to us. She was shocked and felt somewhat responsible. In short, no real answers about who this guy was and what he wanted. I even started thinking that maybe he was someone in distress who, by going about it very poorly, needed help. We'll probably never know. There you go. Australia is great. Just kidding, despite that, we have a wonderful time here, and nothing similar has happened since. This is already way too long, so I'll finish here. I hope this intense moment of life captivated you. Peace, Luca and Mina. A Tinder date that could have ended badly. Well, I hope with all my heart that this guy doesn't have Reddit and never stumbles upon this post. A month ago, I met a man on Tinder with whom I hit it off quite well. He's interesting, cultured, And anyway, I was pretty confident and happy not to run into, for once, someone who was just looking for a one-night stand. We had friends in common, so when he asked me to stay at his place, I accepted without much suspicion. My friends had told me he was a really nice person, very laid back, so I had complete faith in this person. It was stupid to think like that, I realize it now. I arrived at his place around 9 p.m., and when I walked into his apartment, I immediately felt bad. The atmosphere was creepy, and his apartment reminded me of a squat. There's almost no light, the decor is very dark, and I don't feel comfortable. We decide to sit down and smoke. We start talking, and as the conversation progresses, I learn that he has Asperger's syndrome, and that, as a result, he has a lot of trouble understanding social situations and distinguishing between good and bad. A first red flag. Importantly, he tells me he decodes body language very well and knows directly what a person is thinking, just by observing their posture. He then has me read some poems he writes. It was terrifying. He described a disturbing incident involving violence with unsettling detail, in a way that felt uncomfortably close to personal fascination. I pretended to enjoy the reading so as not to show that I found him truly creepy. During the conversation, we got to talking about his ex-girlfriend. He tells me that they used to amuse themselves by drowning and suffocating each other when they showered together, to see what it was like to have control over each other's lives. I found it very disturbing. I was really getting worse and worse. I was on high alert. There were too many signs that I could no longer ignore. He offers me a drink, I accept, and we go into his kitchen. As he's getting a drink, I notice a gun on the kitchen counter. I don't say anything. I'm frozen, wondering why it's there, so prominently displayed. He sees my panicked look and tells me it's unloaded in any case, that it belongs to his father. That reassures me a little, but not too much. The next few minutes were the longest of my life. We barely spoke. I was considering all the possible exits in case he decided to hurt me. I was extremely tense. I just wanted to get out of there quickly. He tells me his neighbor might come by during the evening, that he's a dealer who also sells weapons, and that, from what I understand, he's a really dangerous psycho. At that moment, I decided to call my dad to come pick me up quickly. I pretended I had something important to do the next day and tried to be as nice as possible so he wouldn't notice I was completely terrified. I just counted the minutes from that moment, checking if my dad had sent me a message to tell me he was downstairs. He seemed to notice that my kindness was completely hypocritical, and I knew deep down that he had seen I was just trying to escape. I was afraid he would take action, so I tried to act like everything was fine. I told myself that if he wanted to hurt me, if he saw that I was scared, he would take action right away, figuring he didn't have time to pretend anymore. It was horrible. He offered me a massage, and I found an excuse not to give him one, but he insisted. My dad was due to arrive any minute, so I agreed, afraid of frustrating him. I found myself in my underwear being touched in a very suggestive way. I felt so bad, I hoped he wouldn't try anything. Just as he was about to touch my breasts, my cell phone rang and my dad told me he was standing in front of the driveway. I jumped out of bed, got dressed, and left straight away, thanking my dad for being there at the right time. This guy texted me several times to come back, saying I'd forgotten a sweater and needed to come pick it up. I blocked him afterward and never heard from him again. Well, almost nothing. My friend also found him on Tinder and started chatting with him. She told me she asked him out for a drink and he declined, saying he'd be more comfortable meeting at his place. I warned my friend, who immediately deleted him. I don't know if this guy would have been capable of doing anything to me if he was truly malicious or just weird. In any case, be really careful on Tinder. Don't go to people's houses you've never met before, even if you have friends in common. You never really know a person 100%. Abusive human trafficking. Hi, I'd first like to clarify that all names used in this story are assumed to protect my anonymity. My name is Marie, and I feel it's important to share what happened to me because it could raise awareness among others who might be in the same situation I was in. First of all, it's important for me to clarify that I'm a very straightforward person. I'm very organized and precise in everything I do. I have my own routine, and I hate doing anything that deviates from it. A few years ago, I met a man in a bar, and it was love at first sight on both sides. We'll call him Sebastian. I truly believed that Sebastian was the man of my life, and that for him, I was the woman of his life. I felt something indescribable for him. We got together very quickly, and I immediately introduced him to my family and friends. He never seemed to want to do it. I'd never met his family or friends, and honestly, it didn't bother me that much. I could understand why he didn't want to rush things. We'd only gotten together after a few days. But I didn't know anyone in his circle, we had no friends in common, nothing. All our dates, without exception, took place at my house because he lived in the suburbs. a little over an hour's drive away, and I didn't have a license at the time. So he was the one who came to my house. One day, a little over a week after we became official, he was at my house as usual, and I decided somehow, and I still think to this day, that it was a sign from a likely guardian angel, to go out and clear my head. As I said at the beginning of the story, it was something that happened to me very rarely, if ever, to not follow my routine to the letter. But today I felt the need to go for a walk, so I asked Sebastian to come with me, but he refused. I ended up going out alone. Everything was going well until I came across a kitten under a car. Scared for him, I immediately tried to get him back to avoid him being run over by a car. So I managed to get him back, and seeing that he didn't have a collar, I took him with me. We were in a neighborhood where cats tended to run away and disappear a lot. So we always used a WhatsApp group that allowed us to ask for or give information on any cat that had gone missing. So I took the cat home to try to find its owner. But you should know that my phone has a broken rear and front camera, so I couldn't take pictures of the little kitten I found. I immediately thought of Sebastian. I explained my request to him, and he agreed to lend me his phone so that he could send the photos of the cat to the WhatsApp group, where I had added him on purpose. He went to the bathroom, and during this time I took the photo of the cat. Being a naturally curious and very guarded woman, I figured now was the time to dig through his phone. Everything seemed too good, too rosy to be true. I was convinced he was cheating on me, but I was far from imagining what was really going on. So I started looking through his Instagram. Bizarre. He has several accounts, including one under the name Sebastian, and several others under the names Paul, Ludovic, Esteban. I was convinced he was cheating on me, so I delved deeper, and what I found at that moment turned my stomach and left such a lasting impression on me. In his messaging app, there were about 20 photos shared of me with another unnamed number. Photos taken long before we met and photos in all circumstances. My clear routine was also established and sent precisely. I immediately understood that he'd been following and observing me for several weeks without my knowledge. At that moment, I felt a terrible terror at having to confront him again. When he left, he immediately sensed something was wrong, but he didn't respond. He eventually left, and the first thing I did was go to the police. Unfortunately, I had no proof of what I'd just seen. When I arrived there and explained everything I knew, the police promised to try, but they weren't sure they'd find him, now that I knew Sebastian wasn't his real identity. Moreover, the address he'd given me was a house inhabited by retirees, and definitely not by a 30-something. I didn't go home for a week. I was at my best friend's house, and I'd blocked him everywhere. A week later, I learned that he had been found and that this man, whose name wasn't even Sebastian, was suspected of abusive human trafficking and was awaiting trial. I moved, and he was sentenced to 7 years in prison after a thorough search of his phone and computers. I've never really gotten over this story, and I'm even more paranoid than I already was. And above all, I wonder what would have happened to me if I hadn't transgressed my routine and encountered that kitten on the street. Be careful of yourself and who you hang out with. If you made it this far, thank you. This wasn't just a story, it was a real experience. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I've got more crazy moments and deep dives into real-life events waiting for you. So make sure to check out my other videos too. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.